Working in a prison, I see things and they scar me, and that's
And we're back for part 2. If this is your first time seeing this video, make sure to watch part 1 first. It'll be down in the description box and it will explain everything. Other than that, for all of y'all that have seen part 1, let's just start off with part 2. The guy got paralyzed.
The guy had gotten paralyzed, yes. He was roughly around my age, okay? So you're dealing with someone that, he was about 23, 24. Super tall, and he ended up getting into a fight, and he ended up getting stabbed several times in the back of the neck. And everyone knows that, you know, any kind of neck injury is a spinal injury. So he had to be life flighted. That's actually something that actually happens. You know, if an ambulance, if it's that big of an emergency, you know, naturally all life matters. So if you can't get an ambulance, send a helicopter.
Yeah.
So this guy was life flighted out. Naturally, an officer was in the helicopter with him. So he ended up going to the hospital, and they had told him he was paralyzed. I actually was in the room when they told him that he was paralyzed. Now, granted, the way doctors always word things, they never try to make anything sound permanent, because there's always that chance.
Right.
So when they told him, they said, you know, there was a chance that you could get the feeling back in your legs, but you will never really recover all your feeling. So he's in his 20s, and here he is being told this life-changing, you know, from a doctor, this life-changing, huge, you're never going to be the same.
With no family.
With no family, no friends, like nobody to help him or work through it. I mean, that's a huge thing to be told, especially in your 20s, that, oh, you might be paralyzed. Okay. And so he started crying, and I felt so bad. I mean, there was no one. There was no hand for him to hold. And so, you know, naturally, I'm a human.
Yeah.
And so I talked to him. I was like, so how are you feeling? Yeah. I mean, which is a stupid question. Of course, you know, how are you feeling? I mean, not great. And he told me the way he handled it, though, really just made me think, it really put my shoes in his position and see it from a totally different perspective. So even with tears coming down his eyes, he was like, you know, it is what it is. It happened. Stuff happens. That's how he said it.
Could you imagine going into prison fully healthy and leaving out in a wheelchair paralyzed? You know, your life never being the same because of a fight in there. Do you know by any chance what he got into a fight about? It's not that it's important, but...
I don't even remember what the fight was about. It could range from owing money, drugs, you just looked at someone the wrong way. I mean, it could be a number of things.
What do they do for him afterwards? Do they release him out of prison after that so he can, like, heal and see the doctors? He had to finish out a sentence?
Yeah, he still had to finish out his sentence. He was sent to a different camp that offers the medical staff and the medical supplies that he needs. And I did find out later that he was only paralyzed from the waist down, because at first he had no feeling in his arms. So at least there was still hope. And when I was talking to him, because I was in my way trying to make him, I don't even know where to start to make someone feel better about that, but I was trying. You know, he has nobody. So I was talking to him, you know, I was like, do you have any kids? He had told me that he had a son. And then it just makes me think in my mind, like, he has a son. Yeah. And and he didn't have, I don't believe he had a long sentence. I think he only had about 3 or 4 years left. And he has a son, he has a family that he has to go back to. And, you know, now, and he was telling me this, he's like, I'm just worried about what job I'm going to be able to have being paralyzed. I mean, he went straight there, though. A lot of people don't think of that stuff. I mean, you're told you're paralyzed, you kind of sit in your own depression for a little bit, which you deserve. Right. He automatically was jumping to, how am I going to work? How am I going to feed my family?
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Dang, I wonder what he went into prison for too. Probably not something too bad if he got such a short sentence, you know, and dang, that stinks. Just like she said, that can literally happen to you inside prison over the smallest thing because you looked at somebody wrong, because you bumped into somebody, because, you know, somebody thinks you're doing something that you're not. So let me ask you, what is it like dealing with male inmates that, let's just be real here. We're going to keep it 100 because that's what we do here. Being in prison, the women and the men, there's some good looking men in prison. There's some very talented, smart, intellectual, articulate. You know, it's not all thugs from the street. Some of those thugs are brilliant. I mean, no offense or anything. Look at how T.I. is. Very well put together, the way T.I. speaks. He's very, very smart. But he had his day too, you know. So you have to think about those type of people being in prison. What is it like? Do the men try to flirt with you?
Oh, all the time.
I bet they do, girl. You're beautiful too. Come on.
All the time. Oh, no, I don't look like this. I do not look like
That's
this.
a good point. Because matter of fact, I commented on I responded to one of you guys' comments. Tell them about how you dress personally because of your choice when you go to work or when you went to work.
My choice is I already get enough attention, unwanted attention. I don't try anything to get more attention. So when I was going to work, I did not wear makeup. I didn't wear no makeup. You want to know my routine? I'd get up, I'd wash my face, I'd go to work. That was it. I didn't put on any makeup. I would throw up my hair in a tight little duty ball on the top of my head. I was not trying to impress nobody, okay? Because I didn't want that extra attention. Now, there were other female COs that like to wear makeup, okay? I was not one of those.
Right.
That I had even talked to them about it, and a lot of female COs, they said their answer was it just makes them feel secure, it makes them feel stronger. It's, you know, it's their war paint.
Right.
Okay? I didn't feel like that. I'm pretty strong without the makeup. Yeah. So, you know, for them,
no judgment.
No judgment. For them, you know, whatever makes you secure and confident, especially working in this job, that's great. As for me, I just thought it brought on a lot of extra attention that I really didn't want.
Yeah.
But yes, I got flirted with a lot. If I had $1 for every time I got hit on, girl, we'd be having this interview in my place. I'd be living right next door to Oprah.
In what ways do you think, as being from the inside, that the prison systems can improve?
One of the big ways that they could improve is they could upgrade. They need to upgrade. They need to level up, okay? Because they're dealing with technology that was made in
30 years.
Like I'm talking the prison that I was working at was built in around the 1990s. So they're dealing with technology that was made back in the 90s, and a lot of people are like, well, maybe that's not too bad, but I mean, look at how advanced our technology is now. I mean, everything is so much easier. And I've actually gone to other prisons that were made and built in 2008. And just from going to the prison that I'm working at, which was built around 1990, to a prison that was built in 2008, huge difference, especially in technology. The state wastes so much money on simple things like paper. Let's just take paper, okay? Officer stations do not have computers. Computers is not something that everybody has access to. The only people that have access to computers are people who sit in offices.
Right.
We don't have that. So the money invested in just paper alone, I could only imagine.
Right.
Because nobody has computers, nobody has, you know, iPads that they can just send things to. Everything has to be printed. Okay, so things like, for instance, every count, a count slip has to be filled out. Right. Okay, so you think you count about, let's say, 10 times a day. Okay, so that's 10 count slips. And then you also have other dorms, so that's 10 count slips per dorm. That's every day. That's a lot of paper.
Yeah.
I mean, so even just with something that simple could really help.
Right.
Okay, and like I said, that's just with paper. So I think a big thing that would help is if they advance their technology. Why are we not funding this? You would be saving so much money.
Yeah.
And you could also use that money to have programs.
Yes.
Open up programs for inmates so they and have better education systems. I honestly feel that institutions should be self-sustainable. They really should. I'm all about hard work.
Yeah.
Okay. I believe everyone should work. Okay.
Yeah.
And when you go to prison, sometimes they have jobs and sometimes they don't. I think we need to open up more jobs for them to do, because if you're working, you're staying out of trouble.
Yeah.
And if you're working, you're also getting yourself into a routine that when you get out, you're going to be able to have a job and to actually work that job. Yep. And so you won't fall back into the stuff that got you into prison. So I feel like prisons should be self-sustainable, so they should be able to have...
They should have gardens. We asked for that. We were like, why can't... We had all of this open space. It's like, why can't we have gardens? Why can't we grow our own food? You know, like why... I mean... There's all of this green forever and ever and ever. Like, put some pallets out there. Let the inmates build them. Make them do that. Get them into... First of all, being outside and gardening and all that stuff is an actual natural antidepressant. It gets people into healthy patterns and teaches them new skills. And it would cost hardly nothing. You'd get the wood to build the boxes like we have in our backyard and some seeds. And a little bit of water. It would cost nothing. And it would take some pressure off. Because if you think about it, you've got all these, I mean, you've got thousands of inmates. How much food could you grow with all of them out there pulling weeds every day? You know, like, and if in your prison you had people without jobs, see, like with us, everybody had a job. But because there wasn't a lot of important jobs or good jobs or fun jobs, when you first get there, everybody starts on grounds. And you basically stand outside raking every day. And guess what happens when you rake up all the leaves? You're standing up there raking even though there's nothing to rake because you're supposed to be working. Like, get people involved with doing stuff like that, you know, growing food.
Yeah, and I believe that. I believe that prisons should be self-sustainable. They should have an institution that, you know, does farming.
Yeah.
Okay? They should have an institution that works on cars. You know, we have DOC vehicles. But I don't know where the money's going, but it's not going into those vehicles, so they have to be worked on all the time. I mean, being a mechanic, that's something you could work on and take with you outside of prison.
And be a felon and do that. That's an incredible idea.
And I mean, and some people, they try to get it. Well, we offer some programs. Okay, this is the only the only programs that they were offering at my prison was HVAC, which is air conditioning, and carpentry.
Okay.
Which, first of all, there can only be so many inmates that can go into that.
Yep.
And then, not to mention, you're in it for a certain period of time until the class is over.
Yep.
And then you're out again.
Yep.
So there's just not a lot of people going in and coming out. You can't have that many people. So I believe that we should open up more stuff. I mean, so that, you know, we're not having to use taxpayers' dollars to go out and fix a car when you have somebody who is wanting to stay out of trouble. He wants to learn. He wants to take a job out when he goes, who is willing to learn how to fix cars. Teach him how to fix a car.
That is an incredible idea, and I don't want anybody to get it twisted down below and say that prison, that would be slave driving or anything like that, because that is not at all what we're talking about. Talking about setting up different prisons for different reasons and then sending them there, like maybe even doing something like for the a prison that has all elderly people or whatever, and it'd be like refurbishing books for the public library that they can sit all day long and refurbish books or whatever for children or for, you know, or for homeless children that don't have anything. You know, people could send their old books there and there's just so many different ideas. But our prison system is so lazy. And even like what she was saying with the whole working on cars and doing like mechanical work, yeah, they would be working on state cars, but they would be learning a new trade, something that they can do as a convicted felon whenever they get out. And also, you have to think about it. If they spend 5 years in this prison that me and her are making up in our ideas right now, working on cars, when they get out and they fill out an application, they're going to say, I have 5 years experience working on a car. You know, they could even name that program something like
mechanical arts
or whatever. That way they can actually put that on their resume. And, you know, and like, think about how we could, what are we doing with our prison system? We're sticking people in a place and we're letting them sit. We're offering enough classes just so we can tell the public their taxpayer dollars are doing something. But anybody that's ever been on the inside, you realize that there's a couple classes in a prison and they hold about this many people. And then you also have to have a certain amount of time to get on a waiting list to even get in there. So if you have 3 years, you may not even get into a program. Or if you have a year, you're not even going to get on a list, so it doesn't even matter. Or, you know, it just depends on the program or the different things. And, you know, it's so messed up. Like, we need to help people. And we would see, I really believe if we did stuff like that, we would see our crime rate drop.
Yeah. I do, because, you know, hard work has never killed anyone. My mom always told me that. Hard work never killed anybody.
My kids, you better believe that.
And I also feel that, you know, you give somebody, idle hands are the devil's work.
Yep.
Okay? So if you're just sitting there and you have nothing to do, you're going to get involved with getting high every day because you just want something to do. But when you're working and then you start taking pride in your work, because you're also thinking, you know, not all these guys are, you know, older guys. Some of these guys are like 19, 20 years old, coming to prison, never really had a job.
Nope. Yeah.
So this kind of gets them into
Mama's done everything for them their whole life, and they don't know how to feel proud in their own work.
So this kind of gets them into a routine of having a job, about waking up early, getting ready, taking pride in your work. And then when you are able to go back to the dorm, you're too tired to do anything else, or you've worked too hard and you go to sleep because you want to get up and you want to go back to work the next day. So it gives you something to do. It gets you into a routine so that when you get out, you're not going to have to train yourself, whether you've been in there for 2 years or whether you've been in there for 20 years. You won't have to train yourself on to get back into that routine when you're already in that routine of going to sleep at a decent hour, to wake up at a decent time, to get ready for work.
Could you imagine a man that does 20 years getting out and being able to say, go and applying for a job as a mechanic somewhere and saying, I have 20 years experience as a mechanic? That's going to really set him up good. Or you're going to have a man getting out of prison that's, you know, been in prison for 20 years and has maybe taken 2 classes since he's been in there for 20 years for however long each class was, and he doesn't know how to do anything. He doesn't know how to fill out an application. I think that should be mandatory when they get out. Like, if you're getting out and you have 6 months left, I think there should be some sort of thing that's implemented where they have to go in and they have to learn how to do an interview. They have to learn how to fill out an application or build a resume and teach them these skills, because a lot of these people that go in here don't know any of that, okay? You know, schools don't teach you that kind of stuff. So if you haven't learned from experience and you don't know, and even if you've done it before, if you spend 10 or 20 years, how much have things changed since you've been down? You know what I mean? Then you get out and you're insecure. And then homie on the side of the street's letting you know, if you just drop off this package 2 blocks up the road, you can make $500 real quick, and you've been struggling to find it. You know what I mean? So we got some good ideas, girl.
Yeah, so it's a domino effect, and it's supposed to end with us.
Right.
You know? It's supposed to end with us, but it doesn't, because it's just a domino effect, because we don't offer them anything. And then they get out and they go back into those same routines that got them into prison in the first place, when it's supposed to end with us.
Yeah.
We're supposed to give them new meaning. We're supposed to give them a second chance. And we don't.
Right.
We don't offer anything to motivate them to be better and to do better. So it's really hard, and I understand. So then you just have this constant pattern of going in and out of prison.
Yeah. So now we're going to talk about mental health.
Yes. Mental health is, well, you don't have one. Pretty much everyone that works at a prison is on some type of anti-anxiety medication or some type of heart medication. And the only way I know how to describe the mental health is really from my own personal point of view. So you have soldiers that, you know, they're making sometimes the ultimate sacrifice.
Yes.
And they're going overseas.
I'm going to be doing a video on this topic, by the way, just so y'all know, people with PTSD and veterans and stuff, but go ahead.
So they go overseas, and it is known that sometimes they'll use kids and put bombs on them.
Yes.
It is protocol that when you see that, soldiers have to shoot.
Right.
So they have these 5-year-old kids coming at them with bombs strapped to them, and they have to shoot them.
Right.
I mean, it's a job that nobody wants to do, but someone has to do it.
Right.
And my heart goes out to the military every single day. I have family in the service, so But then you're taking that same person that just had to do that, and you're sending them home.
Right.
And you're just sending them home and thinking that they're going to be this, just go back to their normal routine. So they go home back to their own 5-year-old son.
Yeah.
And they have to just pretend that they're okay. So, and I'm not comparing my job to what they do whatsoever.
No.
The hell that they have to walk through, I pray for them every single day. But working in a prison, I see things and they scar me. And that's something that I have to go home with. And it's really hard, you know. First time it happens, okay. But when it happens all the time, there's a part of you that becomes what I call emotionally cut off. It's hard because you don't want to be that person. And that's why you see a lot of your guys that are in the service, or a lot of cops, or even correctional officers, they come off as being, you know, very sarcastic, and they make jokes about everything, and they have this dry, dark sense of humor. But what it is there's a saying, if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Yeah.
And you can't cry all the time. And even though it's messed up, you have to laugh. But those are jobs that someone has to do.
Yeah.
I've seen so many things. I've seen people get hurt. I've heard screams at night. I've seen, you know, faces looking up at me, needing my help. And that's stuff that I have to think about, that I think about all the time. And then, you know, as a female working in a male prison, I've had guys try to gun me and masturbate towards me. And that's something that when it happens all the time, it's just talk about being sexually violated. You have to process that. You have to handle it. You have to. You can't just go home and cry about it. You have to get up the next day and do it all over again.
Yeah.
It gets really hard. It really does, because working out of prison is just this really big gray line of what's right and what's wrong, because your morals are so confused, because you have rules and you have policies and procedures that you have to follow, but then you're also a human who feels bad for another human. You want to help that person, but you can't. It does mess you up, because sometimes lose that line of moral, and you kind of lose a part of you that's human, because you have to be emotionally disconnected. You have a fight that breaks out, someone dies, or someone is seriously injured, whether it's an officer or an inmate. You have to be able to handle that.
Yeah.
You know, just like cops coming onto the scene and a child, they can't all hold around the child and start crying. They got to be able to pick themselves up and do their job. And it's really hard, because you have to emotionally disconnect. And that's a lot to do, because then it's like, okay, well, you emotionally disconnect at work, but then when you're out of work, you can be whatever you want. And to go back and forth with that, it really is challenging, you know, to remind yourself, oh wait, I'm back at home, it's okay for me to show emotion. And then at the prison, when something happens, you know, I'm a female, so my emotions, I wear them on my face, okay?
Right.
You have to be on guard about that, because you can't show all your emotions, because that's a sign of weakness. You know, you have to be strong. So it's really hard sometimes when you see something and you want to react and you want to respond, you want to break down crying, or you want to get mad, or you want to get angry. You know, like I said with the gunning thing, I'm a female, I'm human. You didn't think I wanted to go over to that guy and punch him in the face?
Right.
I mean, look, just like anybody would out in the real world, you could go over there and slap him or call the cops on him or something. You can't do that. You got to be professional.
So let me ask y'all, for all of my husbands and wives and daughters and sons and family members and friends of people that are correctional officers, because I know I got a lot of y'all out there, from your perspective, like my wives, like when your husband comes home, do you experience what she's talking about, the trying to disconnect from doing it different ways, or my daughter's out there, your dad's work? I'm just curious to hear everybody's different perspective. Maybe your father, your husband, your wife, or whoever that works there is perfectly fine with it and is great, and maybe not. Just curious to hear that. I definitely think there should be more implemented for the correctional officers too. You know, the whole system needs to be redone. We need to first and foremost let some people out. We've got people serving life sentences over the pettiest stuff, which is just taking up more space and spending more taxpayers' dollars, because that's what they're going to say, right? That's what they're going to say why they're not doing things like this and doing different stuff, is they're going to say funding. They don't have the funding for it. Well, reevaluate your system. You know, just like I know a lot of you guys have said that a law was passed. I haven't looked it up yet. I need to look it up. But that a law was passed that if you are under 21 years old, that you cannot be sentenced to life in the United States anymore. And I hope that that's true. I don't know. But even if that is true, are they still going and reevaluating all the people that got life when they were younger that didn't kill anybody or didn't hurt somebody? Because you got to understand, I don't personally think people should be serving life unless, I mean, for anything less than like seriously injuring another human being, you know, stealing, whatever else. That's not a life sentence. That's all spending taxpayers' dollars. But I've got a story coming up for you guys real soon, so y'all keep all that in mind. All right, so these videos are getting long because, you know, me and my girl love to chat. We got some more stuff coming for you guys, as always. Make sure you leave any comments and questions for her down in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like this video. It's a free way you can help your girl out. And until next time, we love you guys so very much. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye.